and the stream is now live.
Call to order, councillors. Please take your seats and turn your mobile devices to silent. Welcome to the public forum on Monday, the 17th of February 2025. Public forum relates to the representations from the public on agenda matters before the ordinary meeting of council, which we will commence tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It is a requirement that I advise all present that the public forum is being live streamed, and I advise all present that your presence at this public forum is taken as consent that your image and your voice may be recorded and broadcast to the public by our live stream. Recordings of this public forum will remain on Council's website for at least 12 months. Councillors in the chambers today, we have Councillor Adam Matchett, Councillor Julie Coburn, who's also our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Annette Lawrence, Councillor Ben Pakes, Councillor Dean Saul, Councillor Alexandra Wyatt, and Councillor Noel Selby. And attending by audio-visual link, we have Councillor Arthur Bain. Staff attending today are Stephen Mitchell, Acting General Manager, Michael Jackson, Director of Operations and Planning, Wesley Trotter, Director of Utilities, and Daniel Thorogood, Acting Director, Corporate and Commercial. I welcome everyone to the public forum today. I'd like to give an acknowledgement of country. Kempsey Shire Council acknowledges the land of the Thungari-Dungari Nation. We pay respects to elders past and present. We acknowledge the role of emerging leaders to continue to guide us in the future. We acknowledge the stolen generations and the need to change practices to be inclusive. This land always was and always will be Thungari-Dungari land. I now call for any conflicts of interest. There are none. The General Manager will now outline the guidelines for this public forum.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to address the Council. This time will be strictly enforced by the Chairperson. Speakers at public forums must not digress from the item on the agenda of the Council meeting they've applied to address the Council on. If a speaker digresses to irrelevant matters, the Chairperson is to direct the speaker not to do so. If a speaker fails to observe a direction from the Chairperson, the speaker will not be further heard. A councillor, including the Chairperson, may, through the Chairperson, ask questions of a speaker following their address at a public forum. Questions put to a speaker must be direct, succinct and without argument. Speakers are under no obligation to answer a question put under clause 4.15, which is the clause I just referred to. Answers by the speaker to each question are to be limited to 1 minute. Speakers at public forums cannot ask questions of the Council, Council laws or Council staff. When addressing the Council, speakers at public forums must comply with this code and all other relevant Council codes, policies and procedures. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's code of conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. If the Chairperson considers that a speaker at a public forum has engaged in inappropriate conduct, the Chairperson may request the person to refrain from the inappropriate behaviour and to withdraw and unreservedly apologise for any inappropriate comments. Where the speaker fails to comply with the Chairperson's request, the Chairperson may immediately require the person to stop speaking. This does not limit the ability of the Chairperson to deal with disorderly conduct by speakers at public forums in accordance with the provisions of the Code. Where a speaker engages in inappropriate conduct, the General Manager or their delegate may refuse further applications from that speaker to speak at public forums for such period as the General Manager or their delegate considers appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. We now have 2 items for today's public forum. The same speaker for both, Mr. Lindsay Kay, who will speak against item 10.1, Integrated Planning and Reporting Assumption. Mr. Kay, if you'd like to take the lectern, you'll have 5 minutes.
Councillors, citizens, there is a significant opportunity before you. You could take the easy way out and accept the case staff have presented as is. And when I use staff or the council administration, I don't mean any disrespect to the hard-working staff. So I'd just like to make that clear up front, despite the fact that I am speaking against this. This would be an error Why not take a positive stance? Make the assumption, for that is what it is, that the rate rise will only be the rate peg. This would mean that going forward, any improvement would be improving our financial sustainability, not just continuing our downward spiral. Where is the sense of urgency in wanting to accept defeat as an assumption? Where were the demands for long-term untied grant funding from both federal and state government? Such monies exist. Several regional airports recently received large federal grants to support RFS operations. Why not us? If not now, then soon? Let us not forget the actual victims in this process. I spoke in January 2024 and asked councillors to consider Respondent 24, fine line between subsistence and destitution, or Stacey Collingwood, I live week to week. These are not abstract considerations, and the overall cost of living situation has deteriorated since then, including the 7.9% SRV increase already being applied to rates now and forever. These assumptions are a plan to fail. I have previously stood before council and pointed out that the ongoing lack of a CFO is both directly and indirectly affecting financial sustainability. Is there any plan or time frame moving forwards? In fact, on page 13 of the business papers, there is a compelling argument for using the rate peg as the assumption, that being the cost of altering the assumption if you do not vote for the SRV in June, assuming to fail. Dot point 3, reputational risk. Who is the community mentioned in this dot point? What recent community engagement? Without knowing the specifics, I would assume they might be referring to previous financial management, of which there is much ground to cover. Voting for the lowest possible assumed increase is sound financial planning. If there is no significant improvement, then voting for more to be applied in June makes sense. Assuming that the vote will be made for the full SRV could be seen as going into the vote with a predetermined position. We still have the task force report to consider under section 2231B. You as councillors are tasked to make considered and well-informed decisions. How can this be done without actually considering the input of the community? This community hungers for a fair go, but are hampered from having one by ridiculous and outdated council processes, procedures and policy. This speaks poorly to the ability of the apparatus to perform in either area. What about allowing questions at public forums? Why isn't this a current notice of motion? This additionally goes to section 2231D, represent community, and 1E, facilitate communication. By invoking 223 in order to catastrophise the situation, I feel much of the thrust of it was skipped over. Section 223, 2B and C talks about sustainable infrastructure and asset management. Indeed, staff have talked about the increased cost of maintaining assets if insufficient work is done in the short term. This obviously was not applied successfully in regard to Melville Hall, the Richard Blight Music Centre, Fredericton Memorial Park, the Wygate Food Park and Smithtown Hall, to name but a few.
1 minute to go.
Not mentioned in stakeholder engagement was a rather significant petition and a huge number and magnitude of the public submissions to IPART. Perhaps staff forgot, much as they forgot to alter the upcoming engagements on 5 and 12 February, which appear now to be in the past. Sensible fiscal responsibility demands the low figure as the assumption. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Will you be happy to take questions?
Most certainly.
Councillors, do we have any questions for Mr. Kay? Councillor Wyatt.
I may have heard this wrong, so I'm asking you to go back to your sentence where you said, and I thought you said, it's a sensible thing to take the lowest now with the possibility of raising it in June? Is that what you said?
Well, basically, this paper, what you're being asked to vote on, says that you need to make assumptions for the financial plan going forward. What I'm suggesting is if you make the lower assumption now and the need still exists in June for it to be bigger, well, you can then vote for it to be bigger in June because that's what's going to be the financially responsible decision, if that is the case in June.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Do we have any more questions, councillors? Councillor Pakes.
Thanks for presenting. Through you, Madam Mayor. I've seen, so what you've read out of the information you've seen about SRV, etc. What do you think about the concept of operational reduction versus organisational efficiency? I see them as being two different things. In your presentation, how do you view that as an option to go one way or another? Is it service reduction or is it organisational efficiencies?
Mr. Kay.
I believe that there is a role for both. I think that there should be considered in any of the planning going forward targeted reductions in services, nothing catastrophic, and you need to consult with community to find what is desirable or acceptable to the community. I really don't feel that consultation's been had. There's been that Miramax survey where everything's good, but the questions that were asked I don't think were very good questions. I go on the ABS website and they tell me that it takes 381 people to be statistically significant, and that's not the number that Miramax surveyed, despite what they say about how significant it is. So, you know, I think there's room for both. The organisation, and I've stood before council and said this before, could consider getting rid of consultants where possible and employing staff. It's not about reducing staff. It's about making the whole of the system a better system that's more responsive to the clients that it faces.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Do we have any more questions? No. We'll move to your next item, which is Mr. Kay will now speak against item 10.2, Corporate Performance Report, Quarter 2, 2024-2025.
Councillors and citizens, I don't want to be the negative Nelly here, and I'm speaking against things. I do recognise that. But my vision is for a community that cohesively and together makes the decisions as is they are tasked under the relevant section of the Local Government Act. And the more we honour that, the better job we will do. The Corporate Performance Report is the tail wagging the dog. It is for you, the councillors, to set the performance standards and KPIs for council staff. In a perfect world, it would be a consultative exercise. I want us to work collaboratively as a community to achieve excellence. But how can we, when we face such a huge trust deficit? Nobody engages with council. Why would you? It is made difficult when it matters to you as a customer, and when a corporate performance report appears, the ratepayer is entirely absent. Let that sink in. There were 18 mentions of ratepayers in the financial sustainability, we the piggy bank, but none in the 10.2 business papers. In 10.2.3 Quarter 2 delivery program, the piggy bank got mentioned twice, both under LEOP 15. Help the piggy bank understand its role is how I've paraphrased that one. ECOP 1, 50%. What does this even mean? In reality, it means let it rot and fall down while saying it is in progress. ECOP 5, the 5 headlands coastal experience. Stop. Don't spend another cent on it. Spend not a cent more. This is madness. As is also ECOP 4, but there are reasons why this is harder to stop, that's being the Slim Dusty Centre. ECOP 7, OP 12, where is the business plan and case? I know one exists, this is the sale yards, why can't it be displayed? If it truly is commercial in confidence, then councillors, please address this revenue stream for our financial sustainability. Are all the staff hours that are being reported grant funded? And I did actually notice that whilst the papers say that it's entirely grant funded, there is, what's the figure? 176,398 coming out of the general fund towards that sale yard program. So why don't we trust you? Who knew? CO.OP4, Arts and Culture Plan. Almost nobody in the arts community was contacted or consulted. The current plan is worthless. I can only speak to what I know, but the general feeling across the community is there is a similar lack of effective engagement, and yet it is green lights all the way through. The tail wags the dog. COOP14. What was the outcome of the holiday period parking and compliance program? And how can it only be 25% complete? COOP 16, Fredericton Memorial Park, anyone? How is this a green light? It is that ranking decay and deterioration? Much is made about our devotion to the memory of the fallen. How does this sit with the state of that park? COOP 2021, seriously, see the above. Under all of the LEOPs, I would have thought it difficult to assess this realistically, while so many significant leadership positions are vacant. In fact, I hope the principle of cost savings by not filling positions is not continued. I've previously stood before council and advised that there are significant ongoing benefits financially by reducing consultancy costs via the hiring of staff and ending unsustainable outsourcing arrangements. I stand by this and can bring the evidence as necessary. But to the meat. Where is the KPI for performance standards? I know of many, and again I can bring evidence, requests to council that remain unacknowledged by council. Why are these statistics not part of the delivery program reporting? Once again, the tail wagging the piggy bank. What of the $100,000 public notice board at Kempsey Central that has not been updated since Leo was mayor? Where's the KPI for that? But perhaps most unbelievable was 10.2.2. Quarter 2, 17.2.3, where a facility for further borrowings is being developed. Seriously, stop. Councillors, the community does not trust this council administration, and for good reason. The community does not believe this council administration. This needs to change. The whole way this council administration operates and reports needs to change. More accountability, more transparency, better mechanisms for addressing grievances. Until this happens, there is a hole in the trust bucket, and all the pretty coloured dots in the world will not make it right. Until the community, via its representatives, you, the elected councillors, set the standards, we effectively have none. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Councillors, do we have any questions? I don't think we have any. Thank you for your presentations, Mr. Kay. And that concludes today's public forum. Thank you to everyone who has attended tomorrow for the council meeting. Thank you.